As a fan of both Star Trek and Doctor Who, I couldn't be more excited about this next panel. How about you guys? Now, this panel celebrates the incredible collaboration between two pop culture titans, Doctor Who and Star Trek. And it's all in celebration of the first ever Intergalactic Friendship Day. We will be joined by creatives Russell T. Davies, and Alex Kurtzman. But before we get started, here's a video showcasing these iconic franchises.
There's a lot of things you need to get across this universe. Warp drive, wormhole refractors. Most of all, you need a hand to hold.
We came seeking friendship.
That's what the starship was all about.
I'm a lord of time from the lost and fallen planet of Gallifrey. And we have work to do.
Ross Tyler, you're a genius!
Captain.
There are so many reasons to join Starfleet. We get to reach for the stars.
Take us out.
Aye, aye, Captain.
But most important, we get to reach for each other.
Wherever you go, we go.
It looks even better through your eyes.
I think we make a pretty good team.
My friends have always been the best of me.
Well, so help me, I'm actually pleased to see you.
How long are you going to stay with me?
Forever.
Let's make sure history never forgets the name Enterprise.
Whoa. It's you.
Oh, yes.
Hello, old friend.
You'll be all right.
I don't think that I'm a hugging person now.
It's a pew, pew, pew button.
I don't see a pew 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 button.
Just hit them all.
Okay, this whole thing has gone far enough.
There are 400 billion stars in our galaxy.
Doctor?
We've only explored a tiny fraction. You have a lot of work to do.
Oh, I'm having the best time! You're gonna be someone else. It doesn't matter who, because every single one of you is fantastic.
Did we just see the beginning of a new life form?
Once again, the magic of science prevails.
What's the mission?
We explore.
You are the maddest, most beautiful thing I've ever experienced. And I haven't even scratched the surface. I love you more.
Communication is a matter of patience, imagination. These are qualities that we have in sufficient measure.
You changed me. You have made my life bigger and better.
This has become my home, and you have become my family.
Lower decks, friendship.
Now, please welcome showrunner and executive producer spearheading the Doctor Whoniverse, Russell T. Davies. And floating in, showrunner and executive producer at the helm of the Star Trek universe, Alex Kurtzman. But that was a very warm welcome, wasn't it? Now, I want to kick it off with, Star Trek and Doctor Who are two of the biggest franchises of all time. Cannot be denied. But you've come together to form the Intergalactic Friendship Day. So tell me, let's start with you, Alex. What is Intergalactic Friendship Day, and why now?
I really don't know. I'll be honest with you. Like, that's a tough question. What is it exactly? I feel like it said here, Doctor Who and Star Trek share such deep history as these two incredibly storied. I hate the word franchises, but I don't know really what else to call it. I think we share values. I think we share perspectives on the world. I think we want to tell stories that are illuminating about the human race. And each iteration of the Doctor and each iteration of Trek has endeavored to do that for every generation that it serves. And I think that's what our friendship is about, is that it's that beautiful connection.
It's gorgeous, and watching that, can I say first of all that I did FaceTime Alex saying, I really appreciate you're very, very kind to put the shows in alphabetical order. It's like, I love Doctor Who more than anything, but I have to say that Star Trek might be a slightly bigger empire. And I really appreciate it. It's a very, very kind thing for you to do, to be sharing a platform with you like this is enormous. But did we go well together?
I think everyone was very good.
I think the story about today is no children have franchise copyright laws in their heads. Any child would have the Doctor walk into the Enterprise and have Daleks fight Borg, and that's what it should be.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's such a great point.
And I think what a lot of people love about this show is that at the very core of both of them is friendship. And it's the key to solving most of the problems plaguing our heroes. And so I'm curious for both of you, what is a friendship? What are some of your favorite friendships between both shows, and why?
Well, I mean, I thought this season of Doctor Who was fantastic. I just thought it was so fantastic with Russell's return. And I found the friendship between the Doctor and Ruby very, very moving. They're all moving in different ways, but I felt like there was something different at play here. The way they kind of looked out for each other and took care of each other, and it feels like it's speaking to this generation in a new way.
Thank you.
Their friendship is speaking to this generation in a new way.
Yes, that's the plan. Alex was amazed earlier when I told him that Millie Gibson, who plays Ruby, was 18. Okay, she can't believe it. So that's such a interesting. And it is. My favourite thing today has been it's friendships on set as well. It's not just the fictional friendships; it's the making of these shows. I presume most of you saw the Star Trek panel today where Alex showed a clip of them telling the cast at Starfleet Academy that they've got a job. And it's amazing. It's online now if you haven't seen it. How do you get the agents to agree to that?
Yeah, Alex.
They didn't know, actually. They didn't know. We did the auditions, and then we decided to cast them, and we had our casting directors tell the agents they want to have a conversation with you, just to have a more personal one-on-one conversation and to get to know you a little bit better.
But then the agent can ask you for a fortune.
No, because you when you're doing those tests, you do a deal in advance. Right, it's in a deal.
That doesn't exist in Britain.
No, you don't do that. I think this maybe needs to happen.
Never heard it. Wow, brilliant. But the point is, you watch those young people getting those jobs. They'll be friends for life, won't they?
They're already friends for life. It's amazing. They have a thread going between all of them, and it just blows up all day long. They just talk all day. They haven't even met each other yet. So it's pretty amazing.
Aww. And Russell, what Star Trek fan friendship stands out to you?
I think what's good, because in a way the difference between the two shows is one is military and one is not. And Star Trek is so much more military. And the funny thing is the Doctor would never join the military would never put up with that idiot. It's like, they are monsters and adventures every week, fights and chases, and yet they never come together. And yet, what I love about Star Trek is it's not military. It is the friendships. It's Kirk and Spock. It's all those teams. It's Bones. It's everyone all the way down to Mike. I'm such a fan of Discovery. It's absolutely my favorite. Just friendships with Captain. fact that Captain Nolan has to hug old Saru and he's so tall like that. I just love those moments so much. But it's a whole chain of friendships throughout that entire. Come on, I love it. It's so basic.
Do you personally relate to Saru because he's so tall?
Today. And his face. So,
And Alex, I love that you mentioned Ruby Sunday and the Doctor because that has been an amazing friendship over this most recent season of Doctor Who. And again, touching on the friendship aspect, going into the storytelling, how do both of you approach these stories and develop these friendships that really resonate with the audience?
I want to know, Alex, how you sleep. I mean, I'm nice and busy. We make 9 episodes a year, and we've got a spin-off coming. And I was just said on the plane on the way over, I was watching not Prodigy, I was watching Lower Decks, and there was your name thinking, which I love. I love it. Jack Quaid, come on, I love it. And I love him in many ways. And so what are your friendships like in life? Because how do you manage all those hours?
Well, I'm gonna cry. It's gonna happen. So my best friends from high school are still my best friends, and we all grew up together, and some of us work together now, which is really nice. And but yeah, that's really what it is. I have friends that go all the way back to 7th grade, and I think because we all grew up together, now we all have kids who are also growing up together, who are the age that we were when we all met. So it's particularly amazing to have those things. But I think that kind of friendship just grounds you in life, because Hollywood, I don't know if anyone knows this, it's a very fucked up place. So it's, it's a little uncomfortable, but it's very nice to have, those deep friendships.
But you must have people organizing your time at work. Is that a crazy thing?
I do. I mean, I have an extraordinary team of people. The 2 people who run Secret Hideout, my company, Robin Johnson and Aaron Byers, are like, and Greer. So everybody who's here has the company in each show sort of like organized within an inch of its life. Nothing gets past anybody or anything, and there's no version of me being able to do it all myself. So when you see my name on that show, it's lovely, but the credit really has to go to so many other people. The shows that I'm running, as I'm sure is the case for you, that's where my job is to pay attention to absolutely every detail. But at a certain point, you have to hand the show over to the showrunners and let them do their job.
Yeah. It's amazing when I see Ryan Murphy's name on the credits. I think, when do you do your washing?
Right.
So many shows.
And both shows have dedicated and global fandoms. Like, look at everyone in the room right now. And as fans yourselves, what does fandom mean to you?
Oh, that's a complicated question. You go first.
Because we are fans.
Yeah.
I think that's the pivotal thing. And we've just been backstage talking about the band and the boys and all sorts of things. There's so many shows to be fans of, and I think that for me, I bear it very much in mind at work. It's like we keep very close eye on things like the merchandise. You keep an eye on the show and try and make it good, and that's it. Take it as read, but the merchandise kind of bugs me. We've got great people here, Vanessa here. It's like making sure it's worth it. Money.
Sure.
Sometimes it's expensive. I mean, the uncle has got to be. We try to make the sonic screwdrivers as good as they can possibly be. Mainly because, collectors here, you go to Comic Con, all right, you buy a sonic screwdriver. But they're €8.
Sure.
You save up for Christmas.
Sure.
It's like a Christmas present. And you've got to make sure that toy doesn't fall down by Boxing Day. So it's kind of using that fan rate to keep an eye on bigger world. I don't need to talk about merchandise. It's far more than that. But it's keeping an eye on everything.
Sure.
Way.
Yeah.
So that it's nothing worse than when your favorite ship disappoints you. It's like, it's keep it, you know what I mean? We're all men, and it's like, you're going to fight that. People are about to just show some light, disappointed. Okay, well, bye-bye.
I think the nature of fandom, though, is that everybody has a different thing they love. I know that on Star Trek, the nature of fandom is disagreement sometimes. Everybody will have a different favorite show. and they will like one show and not like another show. And I find that incredibly democratic and wonderful. I think debate for Trek is baked into the DNA of what it means to be a Trekkie or a Trekker, or however you self-identify. And it can be, challenging for those of us who are on the receiving end of that sometimes, but also I think we have the perspective that it's so much bigger than us, right? It's not, we're like the person who holds, the people who hold the thing for a period of time. And because we're fans and because we love it, we do our best with it, and then our hope is to pass it on to someone who loves it as much as we do. And that they will dedicate everything of themselves to just to loving it, I think that's what it means to be a fan, at least to be a fan while also creating the thing that you're a fan of.
And it's funny because, you all know this here, that we talk about fandom as though it's this, as though it's Comic-Con, as though it's us sitting watching the television, but it's your whole life. It's everything. It's everywhere.
That's right.
And because I can remember my history with Star Trek was, obviously when I was growing up, I watched the original show, and then I had never actually watched The Next Generation. That was kind of what I'm getting drunk at that age, probably. I know, I don't get that, but I get that. I produced a show called Children's, or it's like a children's hospital, children's drama. And every afternoon my designer would disappear. I mean, where's Steve gone? And we was in his office. They said, why isn't he here? And eventually one day I went to the office, and at 3 o'clock in the afternoon was when Sky TV was showing the 10th repeat of The Next Generation. And I said, when do you come and do your work like that? And he said, you would love the show. You would so love the show. I said, don't do with me now. And he got me, this is how he got me the VHS. He got me all the best VHS that you was. It was the SDCC Centre.
Right.
It was that episode that made me wear. Talking about friendship, actually, on the SDCC Enterprise,
Rachel Garrett,
we make the right decision out of faith, out of Fred Kirsten believes Guyman, because it's as simple as that. And that was the turning moment when that's the most magnificent show. But then I went back and watched them all properly. All thanks to Steve Gray. But that's something about fandom. It's like when I think of Star Trek, I don't think of lists. I don't think of my top 10 favourite episodes. I think of this. I think of, lovely Steve will get married to an actor, and white nose, and lovely as tea together. All these years later, she was in it too, blah, blah, blah. Into your life, woven through these shows. And I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is love.
Alex, do you have any early memories of fandom for you as being a fan of something?
Yeah. My first movie, I think, was Star Wars. So it like dropped me into that experience, and I think Star Wars now, it's so different than what it was when it first came out, because nothing like it had ever really existed, and it was a big bang. It's a big bang for me, and there were so many of us who saw ourselves in some version of those characters. And then I, sort of in equal measure, my friend's father worked at JPL, Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And when we would go over to his house on Saturdays, they would watch Star Trek. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it's the first time that I understood that the people who watch Star Trek create the things that bring us into the future. And so there's some merging of those two things, or those two understandings. I think that has informed my whole understanding of fandom and genre.
Incredible.
That's amazing, because I am as old as Doctor Who, so Doctor Who always there. But when I never knew a world without Doctor Who. My first time is literally Doctor Who. And I can remember thinking that Doctor Who strangely has stuff missing from its archive because it was made on videotape in the 70s.
Right.
But in Star Wars in the 60s, they merged all, they take it over. Can you imagine? There's about 100 episodes gone forever, except in my mind. One day that cable will just go and I can literally remember things that are missing from the archive. Legit.
That's crazy.
From when I was about 3 years old, the regeneration of the first Doctor into the second Doctor is missing. And it's amazing, isn't it? But I remember they've since found photos and done reconstructions, and it's exactly as I remember it. And I was under 3 years old. And it must have burned itself into. And I had no idea what was happening. We didn't say who was regenerating. It just fell to the floor of the TARDIS. And what I did remember was all the switches on the TARDIS were operating on their own. It's a little 2-year-old boy that's right. So then I think sometimes Doctor Who, through its horror aspect, that it burns itself into
it's scary.
If they'd just be chatting, I would remember that, but it's like terror of it. Just made me a fan for life. Let's say that.
The power of fandom. And so since you started off with Doctor Who as being a fan, how do you think that perspective has helped you create new stories for recent Doctor Who?
Oh, I've ruined it. I mean, trashed. It's funny, isn't it? It's like I do have an enormous history of it in my head. Someone, I called H yesterday, someone asked a very obscure question from 1996. And I was like, yes, I know exactly what you mean. Screaming the Schalke. It's exactly the same way. So I've got I've got an index in my head. It helps me in simple terms, like, has there ever been an episode set during the fall of Troy? With the proposed, yes, there has. So that can, but I don't think that automatically rules that out. But I know what's been done, World War II, World War I, the future, this sort of monster, that sort of monster. So I kind of got a list that helps. But the point is, I think if someone walked in with the best story about the fall of Troy, said the world could move, I mean, that'd be brilliant. So I would say, that was studying 1966. Nobody really matters now, right? Studying 1966. But there's templates. Sometimes I think templates are too much. Sometimes I think, I know how to get out of this situation. You do this, that, and fall back on those too much. Do you know what I mean?
Of course, absolutely. I think, first of all, your writing is so crazy good. It's so good. On so many different fronts. Not just but Queer as Folk, and it's like, oh my god. So you bring a gravitas. This is one of the things that I think is actually so important about how to evolve and iterate a franchise, is to bring that level of gravitas, to have writers like you, bringing it into the modern age, but also who have such a humanistic and wide perspective on the world, and that's what makes these shows so profound. Wait, you were asking me a question, and I just had to love Russell for a second.
No, this is great. Okay, well, switching gears a little bit, Alex, I want to know, if you had to write an episode of Doctor Who, which story would you want to tell?
I have to tell you, I don't know how to answer that question.
Open door.
Because, I really, it's intimidating, honestly. It's intimidating. There's always a twist at the end, right? That freaks me out. It's very hard, right? I thought about that. I was like, I wonder if Russell would hire me to write Doctor Who.
Yes! I don't know if we can afford you.
I'll do it for free.
You've got 1 or 2 witnesses to that. Lock the doors.
Russell, you're in the hot seat now.
Oh my God, I would write the ball. I love the ball game. If there's a ball episode, and then what you did with that ball queen with Picard, I just love it. I just think that this idea, it keeps expanding and expanding.
So do you think there's more Borg story to tell beyond, because the Borg is a very traveled entity at this point.
Yeah. I think we always have the Daleks coming back.
Sure.
There's always sometimes there could be a routine Dalek story, something you want that. Sometimes there's one first contact, don't it?
Sure.
It's so brilliant. You want that thrill? There they are. They're converting people. Let's stop. That's wonderful. And then what the things you've done with the Borg Queen and use, there's always something. The next person will have anyway. And young people, someone who's 17, 18, who's grown up with the Borg, will think of them differently to us.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure. Absolutely.
Great. Well, you have the job now.
He's hired. And is there a gadget from Doctor Who that you would like to bring into the Trek universe?
I just would love to see the TARDIS in the Trek universe. Probably the most obvious answer, but that's exciting.
And for you, Russell?
You're the greatest idea ever is the transporter. Isn't
right?
It's so what is the history of how they thought of that in the 60s?
Yes, the history of the transporter is that they they were like, okay, well, we have very limited budget, and we have to figure out a way. They're in the ship, and then how are we going to get them to travel down to the planet? And you can't really afford a spaceship. They had the one shuttle. Well, why don't we just create Roddenberry, I think, why don't we just create a pad they stand on and they just appear on the planet? It was genius. It was genius.
Absolute genius. And speaking of genius, what a weird segue. Sorry, guys. But there are so many incredible creatives right now in the sci-fi space, so many collaborators and that are just producing amazing content. Is there anyone that stands out to you, a newcomer that you're like, ooh, this is one to watch? Whose work are you really feeling right now?
I'm very excited to see Charlie Cuffel's series, which is coming on Netflix, called Chaos, K-A-O-S. Charlie's an extraordinary... This time he's doing it all with cheering when you hear, I think their name, if I forget the pronouns right. Charlie's a writer. I met Charlie years ago. We worked they worked a program for me called Banana, which was a show about sexuality, and they wrote a story in which they appeared as themselves, just as a lesbian who was finding a way. I was finding a very hard way to find a way through the world, and then they did End of the fucking world. Basically. So Charlie has now turned to fantasy, and for years it's been working on Chaos. It stars Jeff Goldblum. Look at plug those shows. Jeff Goldblum as Zeus. It's the Greek gods living in a mansion and having an effect on humanity, but in the whole day.
Oh my God, with Jeff Goldblum, that sounds incredible.
Charlie Couple, remember that name here.
I'm really sitting here racking my brain, partially because I don't have a lot of time to watch television, which makes me sad because it's sort of the wellspring that you draw from. Honestly, a lot of what I watch isn't science fiction. So, but I think in the world of sci-fi, I think Charlie Brooker is quite clever. I think he's very, very clever, and what he's done with Black Mirror is pretty amazing, and his ability to sustain it for as long as he has is pretty amazing. But yeah, I mean, in terms of genre, sci-fi genre.
Or you could just open it up. What really fuels your creativity and gets you excited?
People who are testing the form, I think, get me really excited. People who are experimenting. When there's a writer or a filmmaker who creates a story that I can't stay ahead of, I get really excited about it. Because as Russell said, there are certain formulas, right? And most of what we watch will fit into a formula. So at a certain point, if you're a writer and you spend your time breaking a story in a room all day, you kind of know where it's going to go, more or less. But when something shows up that is really surprising, I think that for me is very inspirational, because it feels like it makes me raise my game.
It's interesting if you start to look outside the genre. I never thought of this, but if you look at someone like Christopher Story, just
exactly.
What kind of Star Trek episode
would he make? But those are my, it's so funny because when I'm recruiting writers for Star Trek, because we have such an incredible stable of science fiction writers and specific like Trek fans. Like there are Trek canon police in our room at all times, right? So we have that covered, right? We have technobabble covered. We have everything covered. What we don't have covered is true humanistic writing. And so when I meet a writer whose work I admire and I say to them, hey, Star Trek, and they go, I'm not really a Star Trek person, I will triple down on trying to bring them into the room, because I think what people often forget is that what people love, one of the things people love so much about Star Trek is these deeply human stories. And that is the first element, I think, and everything else has to organize around that.
And Russell, I'm curious, bouncing off of what Alex said about how he chooses the writers for his room, what goes into your process?
It's hard, isn't it? Because I am a great believer in using fans, but because they're fans, they're giving their lives to it. It's like, and also they genuinely speak the language. It's a complicated language, and there's no Bible that covers everything. It's like you'll find with a new writer who'll come into Doctor Who, they will inevitably say, you know, the program will reach a climax towards the end, everyone's going to die, but the Doctor goes back into the TARDIS and goes back in time to stop it happening. Right. And you're like, can't actually do that because, and the funny thing is about Doctor Who, there's no reason why you can't do that, except that it's just cheating.
Right.
And one of the hardest things in Doctor Who is that this immensely clever person who knows everything about art and science and history and humanity arrives in an indestructible ship which can travel in time. It's a miracle adventures don't last more than 2 minutes. Steps out, that's the button, press the button, done. Thank you. Bye-bye. And you literally, it's what I always call tap dancing. I always tell the writers, everything has to tap dance. 45 minutes, you've got to put on a show that stops the Doctors saving the day because you've got to find all sorts of, not many dramas exist with those instincts.
Yeah.
So I think a bit of fandom, or a lot of fandom, does help. Nonetheless, having just thought of Christopher Storer writing science fiction, I often love direction. Maybe we should do more to reach out to writers who would not write. I mean, it's interesting. It's like once a writer's career started to appear, they probably don't want to go work for someone else's franchise.
Oh, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the problem. They've gone their own career. So, no thanks, I don't want to be embedded in yours. I'm heading that way. So it's true. But getting new writers is always the important thing.
Finding those people who are going to become those people.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? But that's what we're here to do in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, always.
Yeah, and we already know that both Star Trek and Doctor Who have a very proud, loud, and vocal fan base. Like right now, that was nice. I wish people would do that when I walk into a room every time. But with so many online opinions and, fans having very strong feelings about your projects, how do you balance? How do you balance, play that balancing act of, yes, we want to do something that fans love, but also focusing on the story and getting it right and telling the best story that you possibly can?
Yes. I don't go online much. Maybe I should. Maybe that's wrong. I'm talking about Twitter, mainly, or X, mainly as the portal online. I don't feel particularly safe as a gay man, and increasingly I think that it's worse in society. I see what's said out there, and that's a long discussion for another time, but I'm not happy to be part of that. So that's tricky. So that stops you online in many ways. Or we could spend your whole life on there. So I get my agent tells me what's going on. I get people kind of here inevitably. There's kind of osmosis with what's the culture wars or whatever kind of creep through. To be honest, in terms of online activity, I'm much more interested in what's happening. I think Doctor Who's fine. Doctor Who. Well, how can I say this? It's like I think there are things happening in the culture wars, particularly with trans rights these days, that are a million times more important than what's happening rather like this to be forced, and it's getting worse. It's terrifying. So,
you're fighting some of those battles on the show just by the representation.
That wonderful cast of Discovery, I love them. Yeah. I think I did that on purpose. You must do that. Of course, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. That's part of the battle. So, if you take that step into saying what do you pay attention? I kind of have to rely on my own fan brain in the end to see what I think's going on. Friends tell you, you get a sort of friends and family. I'd much rather hear what they think of it, kind of way.
Yeah. I think if you're a writer, just the nature of being a writer is that membrane between you and emotion in whatever way it is, and it has to be thin in order to be good at it, right? You have to make yourself raw in order to tell stories well. And so it's one of the most vulnerable things you can do, is to stand in public and present something to people, and either they go this or they go like that, right? And it's very easy to go like this, it's very easy to go like that. And so I think part of it is that I've worked very hard to be able to recognize and listen to criticism that's coming from a place of genuine fandom, which is, I love what you love. And I did like this or I didn't like this as a, I feel like you missed a thing here or you missed a thing there. I actually really appreciate that. And we bring all of that into the writer's room. And we talk about it because when something feels resonant and truthful, you go, yeah, we should think about that next time when we're breaking the next story because we missed this thing here, we missed that thing there, or this really worked for people. Why didn't it really work, right? And that is keeping that alive, keeping that fandom alive in the writer's room is very important. The flip side is there are so many people who are using the internet to, just post negativity. It's a bathroom wall. And they can say anything about you, and they can say anything about you with impunity and immunity. And that is unkind. And that is not okay. And so, but it is what it is, right? That's the world that we live in. So my feeling is that unless you want to get into the ring and try and write a Star Trek episode, it's very easy to criticize it. And if you're going to criticize it or criticize me as a person, you don't know me, right? You don't know anything about me. Then you are not welcome into my head. And I have to be.
Well said, Alex and Youngful, both of you. And switching gears a little bit, let's get into a little fun question. Russell, who is your favorite Star Trek captain and why?
This is Captain Michael Burnham. Just happy evening she had in middle age and wouldn't glare light. It was the kind of thing that it brought me properly back to Star Discovery. I'm very passionate about Discovery. It brought me properly back to Star Trek after I wandered away for a bit. Now I watch everything. I just love that. I thought the performance was... I love her. I'd do anything to her. Anything.
She
loved it. Yeah.
I'm so grateful that you feel that way.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
And Alex, your favorite doctor and why?
I mean, I look. It's very difficult to narrow down one. I think I sort of became more aware of the Doctor around Eccleston, I'm a huge fan of him, of his. I just think he's amazing. Obviously, David Tennant. I will say that Judy is amazing. Like, he's really amazing, and I maybe relate to this Doctor the most.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, I think it's beautiful, and I love Ruby, and I love that her name is Ruby Sunday.
I love the synergy between you guys. Lovely. Well, speaking of synergy, on July 30th, we will be kicking off the inaugural Intergalactic Friendship Day. And as a treat for all of you here in the room, we've created a little surprise to take home. So you should all have a ticket to redeem. So don't forget to get this amazing collector. Okay?
It's beautiful.
Now, for some really exciting news.
Is that sick? Oh no.
I am pleased to share that the Doctor Who and Star Trek crossover will continue beyond this stage. On August 1st, free-to-play mobile game group Eastside Games have announced the launch of new crossover storylines for the mobile games Star Trek Lower Deck Mobile and Doctor Who Lost in Time. I know, you're like, what does that mean? Okay, so fans will be treated to the same thrilling story experience from two unique perspectives of a mysterious space-time ripple that throws the Doctor aboard Star Trek Lower Deck's USS Cerritos, while Lieutenant Brad Boimler and Ensign Beckett Mariner find themselves thrust into the enigmatic Doctor Who universe. And again, just because you're all here, we're gonna treat you to a first look exclusively for everyone in this room. Who's ready to play?
Keisha, can I just say now, Alex and Cynthia, we're not going to, we would love to announce a crossover between Star Trek and Doctor Who. And if anyone can make that happen, it's fans that can make it happen. It's our great big broadcasters, two great big empires, and their lawyers would have to come together. But we can do that, can't we?
We absolutely can.
I mean, quite seriously, I'd love it, but that opening video literally shows you what it would feel like, it looked like, the joy of it. It must happen.
It must happen.
Make it so. And as part of Intergalactic Friendship Day, both Paramount and BBC are making donations on behalf of each franchise. Paramount will be donating to the Boys and Girls Clubs of America on behalf of Star Trek, and BBC Studios will donate to BBC Children in Need on behalf. And we encourage you all to share in the charitable giving, if you can, in the spirit of friendship. Yeah. So we're going to turn it over to fan questions. If you want to line up in the aisle, you can. No, please, no running.
Sorry. Star Trek obviously has a huge history with inclusion. I remember being kissing Nichelle the first time and being like so stoked. Now with Shooty, I'm like even more stoked. I wanted to know how much of him himself was part of his developing his doctor, or did you have a huge vision for his doctor and he's obviously so talented? Did he just fit it perfectly?
No, I mean, he did fit perfectly, but it's a kind of an ongoing thing. He's on your right speed and he's shooting at the same time. It makes it be like this. Well, certainly, it's like you see what he does. Well, I think always the interesting thing to do is to see what they don't. It's like, yes, look like great big smile, so let's see what happens when the smile is gone. And yes, he can trick his way out of this situation. Let's stab him on a landmine. So it's a constant process, and I'm always very wary of not sticking adjectives on characters, because otherwise they stick to them. Mm-hmm. And then all the other writers stick to them, so it becomes a shtick. Right. So just keep it alive.
Oh, that's such a smart thing about it. I love that idea.
Love it. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for being here. I just wanted to ask, there are so many friendships and dynamics and relationships in both your franchises that are just so on par and very touching, and I was wondering how you guys find the right people to portray those relationships so wonderfully.
I mean, my experience with casting is that it's not something that you have to talk yourself into. It's something that presents itself very clearly. And so when someone like Mary Wiseman walks into the room, you go, oh yeah, you know, because you just can see how the potential is. Same with Siniqua, same with the kids that we're casting right now on Starfleet Academy. You know, that you do this incredibly deep dive. It's so funny because I think I was telling you this the other day. My experience is that in casting, you're sitting there and you're hearing actors do your words, and many of them are very good, the actors. But but you're sitting there mostly going, I'm a terrible writer. I'm really bad. This is just not working. Clearly, I totally miscalculated the scene. It's not working. And then somebody will come in and they will do it, and you go, right. They're hearing it at the right pitch, and they hear it the way I heard it in my head, and so that's always the person. I think my experience has also told me that, like the Discovery cast, for example, to a person, the nicest people you will ever meet. They loved each other so much. I've never actually seen anything quite like it. I've worked with a lot of amazing casts, but these were people who would work all week together and then spend time together on the weekends playing Mafia. Like, I mean, it was deep, you know? And that translates to the screen in terms of friendship. You feel it. It's, some of it is, you know, they're all great actors, but you feel it when it's real.
And you know, I would say we get a lot of the credit. It's the casting directors.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
They search, they find talent, all sorts of corners. Bless them.
Yeah.
Shout out to the casting directors.
Big time. Yeah.
Thank you.
First, I just want to say, Russell, thank you for bringing Doctor Who back in.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And I'm Richard, so what was your favorite moment when filming with David Tennant? I mean, or the first era or the 60th?
Favorite moment filming with David Tennant? Well, it was absolutely wonderful being on set when he regenerated and handed over to shooting. That was very, because that had never happened before, to have two doctors together instead of regenerating one to the other, right, split into two, and it became shooty as well. And I can't tell you, that was the sunniest day at Cardiff. It was absolutely beautiful, and we all kind of gathered, we all knew that was a special day, and Dave was so magnificent to Shooty. Shooty just loved it. So one of those, filming's normally hard work and I schedule and everyone's tense, and it was just one of those days when everything relaxed. You must have it.
That's so great.
Thank you.
Hi, the question's for Russell. I loved Years and Years.
Oh.
And so much.
Wow.
So bleak, and I'm wondering if we're gonna see... Will we see some of those same concerns about Earth's future in further Who episodes, or do you feel like that the Doctor Who universe is more optimistic?
Well, I pray we've diverged the use of this time. I did have a second trumpeter. Please let that not happen. Please, do you know why? You talk about the Discovery girls loving each other, and the Years and Years cast got on so well. They opened up a group chat yesterday, which was made about 5 years ago, and Jessica Hines came, I miss you all, how are you? Let's go to the theatre. And it's struggling. Bloody actors. It's not like, they're a properly lovely bunch of people, that one. And I know you mean, it's like those themes I do try to put forward into Doctor Who. Actually, this spin-off, thank you for mentioning, leading me to the spin-off, All Between the Land and the Sea, it's a story. It's set in modern day Earth. It's about a race of creatures waking up underneath the oceans, and we have trashed them. We have ruined the ocean. They go, what have you done? That's practically scene one. It's a war. So it's taking those themes and dramatizing them. I think science fiction's a very good way to dramatize climate change. It's very hard to talk about normal dramas. It's very hard to talk about people warming the weather. But I think fantasy has a way of addressing that. So I'll keep trying. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm a big fan of both series. I have a question for either of you. In Enterprise episode 216, Future Tense, the crew of the NX-01 encounters a ship that is bigger on the inside. Is this ship secretly a TARDIS?
I did work on Enterprise, I can tell you.
My answer would be it.
Yes,
Really? Did they explain it? They don't explain it?
It's from the future.
It's TARDIS. We cannot change that canon now. It's a TARDIS.
Firstly, thank you to both of you. Both of these shows have saved me from a really angsty teenage years, so made me feel seen. Thank you. My question is to Russell. Are we going to see Dr. River's song again? And if so, please can we?
Or the Enterprise. I thought that would be amazing. To be honest, there are no plans. Alex Kurtzman a very busy woman. She's so, as we saw her the other day. She's just done a brilliant series with Stephen Moffat called Douglas is Cancelled, which,
Oh yeah, I heard about it. It's amazing. That's great.
Karen Gillan's in it. It's absolutely extraordinary, and it's not what you think. Let's keep watching. So one day, I'd love it. Absolutely. Yes, please.
But we do know Ruby Sunday will be back as a companion, along with a new companion.
The what?
No, as well as a new companion. We have another companion come in. Yes.
Good evening, gentlemen. My question relates to when you have so many different writers as a conglomeration, how is it that you can weave things like story arcs, like Bad Wolf, like how there were all those little nuggets, but they were in different writers' episodes, and I don't know if there's an exact corollary in the Star Trek, but how do you weave those?
With something like Bad Wolves, which we did on the very first episode series, the most that was me. We had no lots of different writers of mine, and once the scripts were complete, I kind of say, we put that there, we could put that in. We kind of improvised it, and it was a lot, to be honest. It was quite neutral, fun, but and we never knew whether it would work. It kind of grew as the series went on, but that's. And then other writers, sometimes they'd have a great idea, put that in, but that's kind of an executive producer's job to.
Your fingerprints.
You must have done that.
Yeah, absolutely. We have lots of conversations at the beginning of a year when you're breaking a season, and you talk about what you want to integrate, and then the writers go off and do individual episodes, but your job as the showrunner is to hold all the potential connection points in mind, and the staff does it as well, but sometimes you see an opportunity as it goes through the final pen to make connections, and that is part of the job. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for both being here and all the work you've done, especially Russell. I'd like you to, but Russell introduced me to Doctor Who, and The Writer's Tale is also a brilliant book. So for Russell, Sir Patrick Stewart in a Doctor Who episode. He doesn't need to play Picard, but please, Sir Patrick Stewart in a Doctor Who episode.
Well, we want Picard in the Doctor Who episodes. That's what we are.
That'd be fun.
I'd love it. I think that. Yeah. Great man.
Hello. As you can see, I'm more of a Star Wars fan. Any other? So, hopefully we can get Star Wars into the Intergalactic Day of Friendship. But for my real question, flashing back about 30 years to Next Generation, Captain Picard had a friend that was an archaeologist that ended up disappearing with Q to go on many adventures. I don't know if you remember this, but as writers, I would wonder, speculatively speaking, do you think that was inspired by Doctor Who and the Companion?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I don't know. I don't actually even know who wrote that particular episode. It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, I guess we could say yes.
Now, as one of those writers that you challenged to come forward and write for you, could that be a way to combine Doctor Who and Star Trek? Maybe Dr. Q?
Great idea.
We have time for one more question.
Well, I just want to say, as someone who released my first film this year, I was inspired by both of you from, sorry not to make you feel old as a little kid, by both of your works. It means a lot to me to just see you both out there and inspire. Keep doing that. And as someone who's writing and making films, a question for both of you is, I'm always inspired by both franchises, fearlessness and like social commentary, like this year with you talking about white supremacy and Doctor Who, and then Star Trek just over and over and over again doing that all the time. So how do you come up with your ideas for what you want to tackle in each season, and what inspired you to be like, this is the topic that we really need to like say something about?
I think it has to just kind of boil up in your head. I don't think you can tick a list. You've made a film and everything. This stuff it's not list ticking at all. You've got to think, what's important this year? There's all these things are important all the time. And then there's something like Star Trek, which is, someone earlier mentioned, Uhuru, Michelle, it was so amazing. All those years ago, decades ago, Doctor Who was a lot slower, I think, to catch up progressively with that kind of. So it's don't worry about it. Your mind will lead you there. Whatever you're angry about, whatever you're joyous about, whatever you're passionate about, whatever's going wrong in society, what should be going right in society will just rise up in you, and you are a filmmaker. You'll make that up.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. What's the name of your film?
So it's Identities. Dr. Aaron actually worked on it. With
amazing.
So yeah, but I just love you both, adore you both, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
So,
Actually,
Okay, we're gonna sneak in one more question.
If you could put a secret character from each show into an episode, which character would you choose?
You mean like secret character? Like a character who just sort of appears from one show into the other?
Like if you could have a character and you could just like sneak them in as like an Easter egg.
Oh, an Easter egg.
I know what I do. I'd have the Doctor's robot dog K9. Hiding fast in the back there. Off the bridge, no one notices he's on a secret little mission with the Doctor. And you never say a word about it. Oh, let's do that. Oh my God.
Huh. I mean, I think the Daleks are so interesting. I'd be very curious to see how we dealt with them. Be very interesting.
Yeah, deadly.
Deadly. Not nice.
What just happens if that happens?
What happened?
Well, that is all the time we have. Thank you to our guests, Alex and Russell. Thank you for joining. Galactic Friendship.
Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Doctor Who YouTube channel.